Here's a hot take. Adobe apps on the iPad are kind of terrible when they shouldn't be. There are many people who buy an iPad Pro for the purposes of using Adobe apps on it too, because they're so used to using these Adobe apps on their Macs or their PCs, and they think that they're still going to be great on the iPad Pro. Me, and initially being one of those people too. I bought it so that I can use Photoshop for editing any of my thumbnails, and Premiere Pro Rush for editing any kind of videos on the go, and Fresco for drawing, and Lightroom for minor photo editing as well, and that kind of thing. And now granted, this was all so that I can make the most out of my pro editing and design machine for on-the-go work. So let's go ahead and talk about why I feel this way, and if you feel any differently, please feel free to let me know why. For more great content just like this, just make sure to subscribe and then turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any uploads. Also, leave a like and a comment down below with all of your thoughts on this video. And while you're at it, I always leave affiliate links down below in the description as well. But make sure that you check out Luster so you can find the best deals on all of that tech that you're shopping for. It's a simple browser extension that helps you make the best purchasing decision. And lastly, don't forget to check out my merch store if you're into some monochrome clothing like everything I'm wearing right here. So with that said, links to everything down below. And now, not all apps on the iPad are bad, at least when it comes to Adobe side. Most of them are, or especially the ones that really need to be good are bad, because remember that you have to pay a rather hefty fee for all of these. I'm not a student anymore, so I'm actually paying full price for apps that don't let me get any of my work done, really. And it's kind of just a stepping stone. It's something that helps, but that doesn't even work that well or that seamlessly from my experience with the desktop versions, for instance. Now I will give you a perfect example right here. Let's start with one of the biggest disappointments in the Adobe suite for the iPad Pro. This is going to be Adobe Premiere Rush. I used to be a Premiere Pro editor, so I figured that if I go ahead and finish a video on the go, I can at least go ahead and finish it when I came back home and just get a good chunk of work done on the way. One of the selling points of this app is that it is supposed to work seamlessly with the desktop version of Adobe Premiere Pro, so that you can start a project on Premiere Rush while you're on the go, and then you can transfer it over to your desktop so you can continue working on Adobe Premiere Pro. Presumably, that was the idea, but most of the time, that particular feature doesn't work. Because for some reason, I would always get some kind of error message, or it was just some kind of storage issue. It was just some kind of issue that was preventing me from getting my file to actually transition properly from Premiere Rush to Premiere Pro, even when I used their cloud service to do so. And even doing it that way, it hardly ever worked for me. It was just such an annoying experience. And really, all that I could do here was just cut up a clip and not even be able to mess around with B-roll so much, because there's no stabilization, no proper color correction, just filters. Essentially, it just sucks. It's maybe 10% of what Premiere Pro is. Actually, no, way less than 10%. However, I still kept going stubbornly because I was a fan of Premiere Pro, and I wanted to really give Premiere Rush a try, hoping that Adobe would update this app with more features a lot faster than they ended up doing so. However, that's not what happened. And the worst part, the biggest offense of this entire thing, is that Premiere Rush does not work off of an external drive. So that means that because I didn't have the money to shell out on the 1TB model, I'm pretty much screwed because it only works off of local storage. So even if I had a portable SSD connected to it, it still would not allow me to transfer any kind of footage from there. And that was the most annoying thing ever. It was an absolute deal breaker. So that's when I stopped using it, and I switched over to LumaFusion shortly after. Haven't regretted it since I can actually go ahead and finish pretty much any videos on there without any kind of problems. And next up is going to be Photoshop, or I should say all of the Photoshop apps available on the iPad. Instead of Adobe just adding the functionality of every app onto one or maybe two apps, but instead they've gone ahead and split it up into Photoshop, Photoshop Express, Photo Editor. You've also got Photoshop Mix, Photoshop Sketch, Photoshop Fix. It's too many to choose from. And even when Adobe said that we'd be getting full Photoshop for iPad, and we did get a more complete version of it, this is just maybe 20% or less of what you actually get with a desktop version of Photoshop. And it doesn't even do much more than the original iPad Photoshop did, which was very simple mobile editing work. It's better, but it's not that great. However, I can still work on thumbnails on these, but I still can't make proper edits to any of my photos on this app, and I especially hate that the functionality has been split up this way. I switched to Affinity Photo shortly after and haven't regretted it either. It's just a much more complete photo editing software. However, Lightroom, on the other hand, is much better as a standalone app, which is surprising coming from Adobe. Lightroom on desktop is a very powerful photo editing application that is especially great for color correction and color grading overall, from my experience at least. And while you obviously don't get the full Lightroom experience on the iPad, I personally get everything I need for photo editing, so I'm not too upset about it. I can get as detailed as I need to, and I think that that's okay. This app feels more complete because of this than Photoshop, in spite of all of the Photoshop apps on the iPad. It's just annoying having to go through all of them just to get the proper functionality. Go through 5 apps to replace one. It's just insane. However, Lightroom is a great app even on the iPad. So if you wanted to use Lightroom on the iPad, pretty good stuff there. Now, Adobe Illustrator Draw is another massive disappointment here. This is a super basic drawing app with just a couple of brushes. You can use some stock shapes that do look pretty cool, admittedly, and you can even use layers, but that's it. There's a lot of latency on this app, which makes drawing on it pretty slow, and just like before, I feel like it's missing too many things to actually let me finish any pieces, or even just any kind of like proper sketches or anything like that. The pressure sensitivity feels off, the latency, again, is a bit of an issue. It lacks brushes, and I mean a ton of them. So limited, the lack of control over my art makes me question why I even bothered with this app. I switched to Procreate and Clip Studio for iPad, which are way better drawing apps right out of the bat. And Sketchbook Pro, for one, is actually free, so you don't even have to pay for it, and you get much more functionality that way. So, hey, that is worth noting. Now let's go ahead and talk about Fresco. Fresco feels and looks a lot more like using Photoshop for drawing, which is nice, and latency is a lot better. There are more brushes, the experience feels more natural, and I can actually make a decent piece here. There's a lot more control available to you here with your brushes and layers and things of the like. This is a much better drawing app, and there are still going to be some better ones, free ones, like Sketchbook Pro, which I also use for a very long time and gives you so many different brushes to play with. It's almost a full sketchbook experience without the flipbook features and some other minor things, but this is still a lot better than Fresco in my opinion, and it's free. Now, Photoshop Sketch and Draw are absolutely identical to each other. They look exactly the same, and in fact, they pretty much are the exact same app. This just feels like more shovelware. Moving on. Now, Spark Post is a simple way of creating designs for something like a magazine cover and designing cards, even business cards if you wanted to, and things like that mostly operates on templates, but it is very good for what it is. However, you will have to work pretty hard to make anything look unique, I would say, on this app, outside of the template model, that is. And there's nothing too wrong with that, because if the look you're looking for is already within these templates, which for a lot of people will likely be the case, then that's absolutely fine, and it's pretty fun to actually use too. Now, Spark Page, I like quite a lot actually. It's going to be a website design app that lets you design your website however you'd like it to be. It kind of feels like Wix, but on your iPad, and I feel like that simplified method of website design works best on a mobile device like this one too. You've actually got themes, templates, and you can add your own videos and links and that sort of thing. You can change your layouts however you'd like. You can go ahead and preview your site to make sure that it looks the way you want it to. I think it's great for people who don't know much about website design and need a bit of help. I absolutely love it. I'm somebody that doesn't know too much about website design, so I think that it is a pretty cool app. I'm going to start using it more often. Now, Spark Video is more of a short-form video editor that gives you minor control over clips. It lets you create quick animations with text, and it lets you make quick clips to use on social media, but most specifically, I think it is meant to be used on the website that you're already making with Spark Page, which makes perfect sense. It seems to be catered more so kind of like intro or like website, like quick, that you're just like scrolling through on a website, so like I totally get that. And it does seem to work pretty seamlessly with it too, so hey, can't complain there either. Now, Adobe Fill and Sign, or Adobe Fill, if you might come across that one, is actually quite useful. Now, all that it's meant to do is just sign documents and that kind of thing, and fill them in, and it even allows you to forward them back right after, so zero complaints about that. I've used it a few times, and I've actually really enjoyed it. Now, Adobe Aero is more of a fun app. It's made, I'd say, for fun little social media clips, and even to use on Spark posts if you want after recording some of the actions that you've actually put on there. Like, you can create a couple of animations with some stock templates and that they have there. Like, it is just a pretty fun app to use, and it does seem to take advantage of the AR capabilities of the iPad Pro. It is just a cute little app, though I can't think of much to use it for, if I'm completely honest. If you can, do make sure to correct me by all means. And now, the last app that I decided to test out was Adobe Comp, which is a lot more interesting. It's kind of like a layout designer, so I actually use it mostly for like creating like photo collages and that sort of thing. And so like essentially like you can just draw out a layout and it's going to make the shape for you, like for you to insert any kind of media that you want on there. Very interesting and unique. I can see myself using that a little bit more often. I don't know. Okay. So the entire point that I'm trying to make about this whole thing is that if you're getting an iPad Pro for using Adobe Apps only, then please go ahead and reconsider, because these apps just aren't ready for professional use. They are, however, going to be a bunch of alternatives to pretty much everything I mentioned. Apps that actually feel so much more complete than what Adobe offers right now. Things like LumaFusion instead of like Premiere Rush, and things like Affinity Photo instead of Photoshop, and even Lightroom. Even the Lightroom is actually pretty good. And like Procreate and Clip Studio and Sketchbook Pro instead of Adobe Sketch or Fresco or any of those apps. And I also wanted to say that their desktop apps are pretty fantastic, regardless of the many instability issues that you might encounter with things like After Effects and Premiere Pro, for example. But it's not like everything that they make just straight up suck. That's just not true. The majority of apps on the App Store for the iPad are not very good, to be completely honest. And I mean, really, it's just quite obvious that porting apps into the iPad is not at all a priority for them. So do consider the many other options out there that are either free or a cheap one-time purchase, like LumaFusion and Affinity Photo and Procreate, among many others. These are apps that I would strongly recommend a million times over the stock Adobe products that you have to pay a monthly fee for in order to sustain. Okay, and that has essentially been everything for this video. This video was a little bit more of a rant / discussion style of videos. However, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments about what you think in regards to the Adobe apps on iPad Pro. Do you think that they're great? Do you think that they can replace everything that you used to be able to do on your desktop and that now you can do it all on your iPad? Please make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. And again, do make sure to follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram to stay up to date with more of Tech Summit. I would love to have a conversation with everybody about this topic and pretty much anything tech related. So with that said, again, links to everything down in the description. But with that taken into consideration, that's been it for today. This has been Francisco from Tech Summit. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all on the next one. Have a good one and enjoy.